Alright, hi everyone, welcome back to Steamflow. Today I'm revisiting Assassin's Creed Origins on the Steam Deck. This was actually one of my very first games I tested on the deck almost 3 years ago back on the LCD model, and the game is currently 90% off on Steam and you can buy it for just $5.99. So I thought it would be fun to see how it holds up now and if there's been any improvement in the deck's performance over the last 3 years. I'm gonna be checking it on both the LCD and the OLED, and honestly I was surprised by how much better the experience feels today compared to back then. So without further ado, let's talk about it. Now, before I jump into performance, I want to quickly talk about the game. Assassin's Creed Origins launched in 2017 and marked a big shift for the series. Ubisoft moved away from the old stealth-heavy formula and leaned into a more open-world RPG style with leveling, loot, and a bigger focus on combat. You play as Bayek of Siva, exploring a massive recreation of ancient Egypt, from deserts and pyramids to bustling cities like Alexandria. At release, critics praised it for its world design and scale, and many fans still rank it as one of the best modern Assassin's Creed games, right alongside Odyssey. So with all that ambition, the big question is, how does it hold up on a handheld like the Steam Deck? Now let's start with the actual setup. This is the Steam version, and Origins does require a Ubisoft Connect. Unfortunately, there's still no getting away from that. The good news is you only need to log in once when you install it, and after that the game will work without having to log in. Now, if you want to play offline, you can also do that, both without an internet connection and in offline mode. And that means if you're traveling on a plane or just somewhere with spotty Wi-Fi, you can still enjoy the game with no issues. However, when you do go into offline mode, when you launch the game, every time you launch it, the Ubisoft Connect pop-up will still show up and you still need to put in your password, but it will log you in even without internet and you can start the game. That is something that I always check, especially for Ubisoft titles, because some of them are picky about internet connections, logging into Ubisoft, but this one, it works without any internet, so that's a good thing. Now let's talk performance, and for this one I tested every preset from very low to ultra high, and on very low or low, you can get around 50 to 55 FPS in cities, sometimes dipping to 45 in big cities like Alexandria or crowded markets. The game still looks pretty decent at these settings as long as you don't look at textures too much. There are some textures on some rocks that look absolutely awful. However, compared to testing it on the LCD 3 years ago, this is running at almost 10 FPS more than it did back then. So this just goes to show that over the last 3 years we have had major improvements on proton layers and on Steam Deck as a whole. So it is running a little bit better, but unfortunately you can't really lock it to 60 FPS. Now moving up to a low and medium mix, the deck holds around 45 FPS pretty comfortably, so that's a really sweet spot for the OLED, and this is where I personally found the sweet spot. Visuals are sharper and the frame rate feels stable enough that combat and exploration feel fluid. Now, if you do want to push visuals, very high settings or even ultra are playable with a 30 FPS cap. It's mostly smooth, though you can see dips below 30 in busier areas. I think I saw 28, 29 with some stutters. For story playthroughs where you care more about the visuals than responsiveness, I think this is still a great option. Now, I also tested this with lossless scaling. And on the OLED deck, I think it works better than the LCD because it allows you to go above 60, but there will still be some artifacts, especially on the LCD Steam Deck where you're limited to 60. You're gonna see heavy artifacting, especially around Bayek's head, his weapons, or even the UI elements. So this is something that you might try to explore for yourself. I personally would not recommend playing with lossless scaling. In terms of input latency, there isn't that much because the game can naturally reach around 50 FPS on low settings. So pushing that to 60 or even 90 doesn't introduce that much input lag. It is an option, but personally I don't recommend it, especially on the LCD. Now next up, I want to talk about battery life. The interesting part is that across all presets, there isn't a massive difference. Now on both low and high settings, you're looking at around 2 hours and 30 minutes on the OLED and about 1 hour and 30 minutes on the LCD. I tested both, and if you go with medium settings and cap the game to 30 FPS, you can stretch it to about 3 hours on the OLED and 2 to 2.5 hours on the LCD. So if you're planning a long session away from the charger, medium with a cap is the most efficient way to play. Still, this isn't a battery-friendly title, even if it's almost 10 years old, but it's not terrible either for such a big open-world game. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is the UI and controller support. Now, controls here deserve a special mention. Assassin's Creed Origins is one of the most customizable games in terms of controls I've tested on the Steam Deck. You can pretty much rebind everything, which is really handy if you want a specific layout for handheld play. There's also a built-in auto aim system for the bows. You can leave it fully on, turn it off completely, or set it to a partial assist mode, which I think is perfect for the deck. It helps smooth out aiming without making it feel like the game is doing everything for you. And in terms of the actual UI, I think the text is perfect. It's not too small to read. It's not overcrowded. Now, navigating some of the menus does require you to use the right analog stick as a mouse, which can be a bit finicky, but then again, the menus aren't that crowded like in some modern games, so I think it's perfectly fine. So to answer the question, how does Origin feel on the Steam Deck today? I think it's a great experience. It is still a demanding game and you need to tweak some settings depending on whether you want smooth frame rates, better visuals or more battery life. But the fact that you can enjoy a massive open world Assassin's Creed game on a handheld, offline, with customizable controls, that's pretty amazing, and unfortunately it's not something that I can say for the more modern titles. Compared to when I tested it 3 years ago, the improvement is very noticeable. Back then it felt more like, look, it technically runs type of deal, but you wouldn't really want to play it. Now it feels like a legit way to play the game from start to finish and actually enjoy it. So if you skipped Assassin's Creed Origins before, or you just want to revisit it in a new way, the Steam Deck is a great option, especially with that huge 90% discount right now. Before I let you go, if you enjoyed these Steam Deck reviews, check out my Steam Curator page. I post quick recommendations there for every game I test on the Steam Deck. It's a great way to discover what works and what doesn't. Link is in the description. That's it for this video. If you found this helpful, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe for more Steam Deck content. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.